percents. So if you remember yesterday, we talked a lot about percents when we do percent over 100 equals is over of. For today's lesson, we are going to focus on using percent over 100 equals part over whole. Okay, so as we read our word problems today, we're going to identify, do we know the percent, do we know the part, and do we know the whole thing? So you may want to take a minute and write that at the top of your whiteboard, because it's what you're going to refer back to for everything today. Okay, so when we look at this problem, okay, it says at Sandstone Elementary, 476 students walk to school. If this is 85% of the total student enrollment, how many students are enrolled? So on your whiteboards, get your blank and your blank. So our two ratios that we're going to turn into proportions. So 85%. Now, what we have to look at is, what is that 85% telling? And it says if this is 85%, so the students that walk. So 85% of our students walk out of our 100%. Now, 476 students walk to school. So is that all of the students? Does every single student walk? Or are there others that don't walk that would be part of our total? So we are going to put that in our part, because that's the part of the students that walk. We want to know, the question says, if that's 85% of the total, how many students are there enrolled in all? So that's going to be our X. Okay, so now this is going to go back to what we did yesterday. So we cross multiply. 85 times X is 85X. And then 476 times 100 is 476 and 2 zeros. Now we have our equation. So we know we divide to get X by itself. Come over here and divide. So if we do 47,600 divided by 85. Now that looks like a really kind of terrible division problem, but again, just use our trick. We look at the first one with the first two. How many times would 8 go into 47? Well, 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 6 is 48, so that would be too much. So let's come over here and do 85 times 5. So 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 2 more would be 42. So we know it's going to go in 5 times, which is 525. We subtract, we get a 1 and get a 5, and bring down our 0. Now, if I look at that same trick again, 8 would go into 51. Well, 8 times 6 is 48. 8 times 7 is 56. So let's try 85 times by 6. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 8 is 48, plus 3 more is 51. So exactly what we want. So we're going to put our 6 there, which is 510. Subtract and get 0. Don't forget to bring down that last 0. 85 goes into 0 times. So our answer, how many students are enrolled? 560 students. Now, if we look at that, we need to say, does that seem reasonable? So if I look at 85%, that's a pretty high percent, pretty close to 100. 476 out of our 560 students, that seems reasonable. So on your whiteboards, again, draw your 2 lines. Okay, it says Sarah has $300. She goes to the store and spends 15. What percent of her money did she spend? So our what is by our percent, so we don't know. We don't know our percent, so we put our X there. And then we have 100 on the bottom. Okay, because we always, percent's always out of 100. Now, we have 300 and we have 15, and we have to decide which one is my whole thing. Well, it's all of her money, right? So she has 300. And what part did she spend? Well, she spent 15. So we have to make sure, right, that this option right here, that 15, is what she spent. And we want to know what percent did she spend. So we want to make sure, just like when we do like miles and miles, we want to make sure that our tops and our bottoms are talking about the same thing. So we have the whole and the whole, and we have the part with the part. And it's both the part that she's going to spend. Okay. All right. I'm going to take those boxes and lines away so we don't have more on our screen than we necessarily need. Okay. All right. So we have it set up. Once we have it set up, right, we can set them equal, and then we can cross multiply. 300 times x is 300. X equals 15 times 1, 15. And we got 2 zeros with that 100. Okay, now we have an equation. So just like yesterday, divide by 300. Divide by 300. This is really nice. There's 2 zeros and 2 zeros to cancel. So now all my problem says is 15 divided by 3, which we would know would be 5. Now, if our missing is in this portion, our answer must have a percent sign. So our answer would be 5%. Now let's think about that. 5%. That is a very low percent, but she only spent 15 out of $300. So she spent a very low amount. So those two match up, and that would be reasonable. Okay, go ahead and erase your whiteboards. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so again, hopefully you guys have been to a Raptors game. If you haven't, you should go. They're pretty fun. So the Raptors baseball team won 75% of 120 games this season. How many games did they win? So we got percents involved. We got other portions. So we're going to set up our two lines again. So we know the percent, and it's 75 over 100. Now, if we look, what does that 75 represent? It says the team won 75. So this is how many they won. It says of 120 games this season. So we know that 120 is going to be all the games played. It says how many games did they win. So that's our part, because unfortunately most teams don't win every game. So we know that we only are going to win part of them. So again, if we look, the 75 represents the percent they won, and our X is going to give us how many games they actually won. So again, our tops need to match up. So once I get it set up, I cross multiply 100 times X, 100X. Okay, now 75 times 120. So we can do the whole thing, or we can do 75 times 12. Okay, 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 more is 15. 0 placeholder. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. We can add all those up. 0, 10, 7, 8, 9. Now, it was 120, right? So I got to make sure I add that 0 back. Okay, so I have 9,000. So what do? Divide by 100. Right? We like when we get to divide by hundreds when there's lots of zeros involved. So cross off 2, cross off 2. Well, 90 over 1 is the same thing as 90. Now, we want to see if that seems reasonable to go right there. So if they won 75% of their games, they won more than half of them, right? Half of 120 would be 60. And so does it make sense that they would have won 90 games? Yes, it would. Right? And another thing to look at, I know 75 over 100 is the same as 3/4. And if I simplify 90 over 120, well, 9 and 12, they can both be divided by 3 to, again, simplify to 3/4. So 90 what? 90 games, and we've checked that answer seems. Okay, let's go ahead and look at another problem. The sixth graders at Aaliyah's school voted for the location of their class trip. 35% of the students voted to go to an art museum. If 126 students voted to go to the art museum, how many sixth graders are at Aaliyah's school? So we got percents involved, we got a word problem. So we're going to set up our proportion. So we have our percent right here, 35%. So if we think of that, what does that 35% represent? The students that voted for the art museum, right? That's what the 35% represents. So over 100. If 126 students voted for the art museum, how many students are there in the school? So the part that wants to go to the art museum, so that's our part, is going to go on the top. How many sixth graders are there? Well, we don't know the total. That's what we need to find. Okay, so again, let's set it equal. Okay, we cross multiply 35 times x, 35x. 126 times 100, well, 126 times 1 is 126, and we got 2 zeros. Okay, we're going to divide by 35. Divide by 35. Okay, let's do our division. So we have 12,600 divided by 35. So if we use our trick, how many times does 3 go into 12? Well, it would go 4 times. 35 times 4. 5 times 4 is 20. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 more is 14. Ooh, that's too much. So we know we got to drop down one number. So 35 times 3, 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 more that we carried is 10. So it's going to go 3 times, which is 105. 6 minus 5 is 1. 2 minus 0 is 2. And bring down that 10. Ooh, I can tell something. 105 doubled is 210. So I'm going to double my 3. So 35 times by 6. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 3 more is 21. So exactly what I wanted was a 6. Subtract. Get 0. I got 1 more 0. Sorry, I'm running out of room. 35 goes into 0. 0 times. So if we look at this, okay, 35% wanted to go to the museum, which was 126 kids. How many did they have all together? They had 360. So if we think half of 36 is 18, so half of the students would be 180 students. And we're less than half, so we're less than half there. So 360 does seem like a reasonable answer. And we'll go through and do some where you guys try to set it up, and then you'll check if it's set up right, and then you guys will solve it and then check your answer. But let's do one more together. So get your proportion set up. So Gavin caught 42 fish this summer, which is 70% of the number of fish his friend Jason caught. How many fish did Jason catch? So we have our percent, and that percent is that he caught 70% of what his friend did. So his friend caught all of that, right? He only caught 70% of it. So we're going to put that there. Now, we got Gavin caught 42. So we're going to put 42 on the top because we know his friend caught the whole percent. He only caught 70% of them. So we're going to put our X on the bottom. Cross multiply, 70 times x is 70x. 42 times 100 would be 42 with our 2 zeros. Divide by 70, divide by 70. Take off only 1 0 this time because there's only 1 in common. So 420 divided by 7. 7 goes into 42 6 times, which is 42. Subtract and get 0. Bring down our 0. 7 goes into 0. 0 times. So if we look at this, okay, we have 70%, right, of 60. So that's above half because half would be 30, right? So 70% is a little above half, and this is a little above 30. So 60 is a reasonable answer. Okay, I want you guys to go ahead and pause the video. Everybody try to set up your proportion. Remember, percent over 100 equals part over whole. Once everybody has that wrote down, I want you to stop, because again, if your proportion's not set up right, when you cross multiply, it can't be right. So get that set up. When everybody's done, go ahead and press play again. And then you can kind of check to see if yours is set up right. Okay? Okay, go ahead and pause. Okay, let's check what you guys got. Jesse practiced basketball for 45% of the time Ellie practiced. So 45% of the time of Ellie's. Jesse practiced for 36 minutes. So Ellie's practicing the whole time, but right, Jesse, it said she only practiced 45% of the time, which was 36 minutes. So the whole time would be Ellie's, and that would be on the bottom. Okay, now that it's set up right, I want you guys to pause again, and I want you guys to cross multiply and come up with your answer. And then when most of you are done, we'll press play and check your work. Okay, let's check what you got. 45 times x, 45x. 36 times 100, 36 and 2 zeros. Okay, we're going to divide by 45, divide by 45. So 3,600 divided by 45. So let's use our trick. How many times would 4 go into 36? Oh, well, 4 times 9 is 36, but I don't have just 4. I have 45. So I'm going to drop down one. Let's try 8. 45 times by 8. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 4 is 32. Plus 4 more is 36. So 8 is exactly what we wanted. Subtract and get 0. Bring down a 0. 45 goes into 0. 0 times. So let's think if that seems reasonable. So 45% is really close to 50%, just half of it, or just down just a little bit from half. So if I look at our 80 that we just found, well, half of 80 is 40. So this is a little under, and right? And if this was 50, that's a little under. So does our answer of 80 seem reasonable? Yes, it does. This one again, you guys set it up. When everybody has it set up, let's go ahead and check that it's set up right before you start into the problem. So let's look. Okay, so go ahead and press play whenever you're ready. Okay, check what you have set up. So Maya and Cooper work at the same store. Last week, Maya worked 8.5 hours, which was 40% of the amount of time Cooper worked. So hers is only 40% out of the whole time Cooper worked. Okay, which her part she worked was 8.5, and Cooper worked the whole time, so his is the X. Okay, go ahead. Pause it for just a second. Go ahead and cross multiply. Now, what we know, right, when we're timesing by 100, don't just add zeros, move the decimal. That should help you. Okay, pause, try it, and then check your work. Okay, guys, let's check where we're at. So 40 times x, 40x. And just like I said before, right, normally we feel like, oh, just put 2 zeros on the end. Well, we do that because it's a whole number. But if I have a decimal, I can't just add 2 zeros. I'm moving the decimal 2 places. So this actually becomes 850. Okay, so then we divide to get x by itself. Okay, so my zeros can cancel. Now I'm saying 85 divided by 4. 4 goes into 8 2 times, which is 8. Subtract and get 0. Bring down our 5. 4 goes into 5 1 time, which is 4. Subtract and get 1. Put a decimal, add a 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times, which is, I'm going to move that up here, sorry, which is 8. Subtract and get 2. bring down another 0, 4 goes into 20 5 times. So Cooper worked, if we click over here, Cooper worked 21.25 hours, which if we think of that about 20, half of 20 is 10, and this is a little less than half, so that's a little less than half as well. So our answer does seem reasonable. All right, let's try another one. You guys, again, set it up. Press play after you have it all set up. And then we will go back and solve it. Okay, let's check what you got. So you put your 2 bars. In a shipment of tiles, 12% are damaged. So we got to be careful, right, on this one. Okay, this one can get a little tricky. So 12% are damaged. Now, 1,144 are undamaged. So if 12% are damaged, if we put 1,144 right here, that's undamaged. Does damaged and undamaged match up? No. Okay, so we have to do a little thinking here. If 12% are damaged, can we figure out what percent are undamaged? Yeah, the rest of them, right? We do 100. We take away the 12% because we know 100% is all of them. Okay, we go over and borrow. 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 1 is 8. So now we can set this up. So we got to be careful that these match. If they don't, we got to do some subtracting, okay? So we know then that 88% are undamaged. And now we can put our 1,144 because that is the undamaged. So this right here matches that right there, right? And then we want to know the total tiles. So here we go. 88 times x. 88x. 1,144 times 100. We get to put 2 zeros. Divide by 88. Divide by 88. Okay, now I'm going to erase the one that's not right so I have a little bit of room on my screen. Okay, let's do that division. So 1,100, or sorry, 100, now with our zeros, it's 114,400 divided by 88. All right, this looks crazy, but it's not going to be that hard. Here we go. Does 88 go into 1? No. 11? No. 114? Yep, one time. So we get 88. We have to borrow. 14 minus 8 is 6. That's now 10 minus 8 is 2, and we bring down a 4. So how many times would 8 go into 26? Ooh, 8 times 3 is 24. So let's try 88 times 3. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 3 is 24 plus 2 more is 26. Right? So this problem looked all crazy, but really it's pretty simple. Okay? Because that goes in 3 times, which is 264. Subtract and get 0. Bring down a 0. 88 goes into 0 0 times. Bring down a 0. 88 goes into 0 0 times. So if we look at this, right, 88% of them are undamaged. That's a pretty high percent. If we look at our number, 1,144 out of, we just found 1,300, right? That's a pretty close number to our 1,300. So our answer seems reasonable that that was the total number of tiles. Okay, let's go through this one. There are 30 students in a class. 40% of the students were absent on Monday. That is a terrible absent rate. Okay, but here we go. Let's figure it out. Select all the statements that are true about the class. So before we can see which ones are true or false, we got to figure some things out. So we set up our proportion. 40% of the students were absent. So that's a part. that were absent. Now, 30 students were in the class. We have to think, is that part of them? I hope not, because if that's part of them, then we have a class of higher than 30 for the whole. So that number is our whole thing, right? There's 30 students, and we want to know how many were absent. So let's figure this out. 100 times x, 100x, 40 times 30. Well, 4 times 3 is 12, and 2 zeros. Divide by 100, divide by 100. I get to cross off 2 zeros, so my answer was 12. So 12 students were absent? Yep, true. The number of absent students is more than the number of present students. Well, if there's 30 students in the class and 12 are absent, I can do a subtraction problem. Oh, nope, 18 are present, so that one's not true. The ratio of the number of absent students to total number of students is 2 to 5. So absent to total. How many were absent? 12. To the total is 30. So if we simplify, right, what can I divide them both by? I can divide by 6, which gets me 2. I can divide by 6, which gets me 5. Is my ratio 2 to 5? Yes, it is. So that one would be true as well. Okay, here we go. So you guys go ahead and look at this next problem. Again, get it all set up and go ahead and cross multiply, solve it, and then when you have your final answer, let's check it. All right, let's check. Here we go. So got your proportions. In a survey, 80% felt that they did not eat enough vegetables. So 80 over 100 did not eat enough. If 1,300 people were surveyed, so that's our whole thing in the survey, how many felt that they ate enough? Okay, so we got to be careful here. If 80% felt that they did not, the question we're getting asked is that they did eat enough. So we can either subtract at the beginning or subtract at the end. I'm going to choose to subtract at the beginning. So if 80% felt like they ate enough, then, did not eat enough, then what's the other percent that felt like they ate enough? Well, the other 80 and 20 make 100. So now the 20% feel like they ate enough, and this answer is going to give me that they ate enough vegetables. So cross multiply. 100 times x, 100x. 20 times 13. So let's do 2 times 13, which would be 26. Now be careful, you got a lot of zeros. 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Divide by 100. Divide by 100. Take 2 off. Take 2 off. 260 over 1 is 260. So if I think 20%, that's not many people eating their veggies. But 260 out of 1,300, that's not many people eating their veggies. So my answer of 260 seems reasonable. Okay, here we go. You guys try this one. Okay, if you need some help, check with a neighbor, and then we will check it. Okay, let's check. There were 2 candidates for class officer, Emma and Sage, out of 320 total votes. So that's the whole thing. It tells you total and whole, right? I mean, the same thing. Emma received 120 and Sage received 192. What percentage of the students voted for the winning candidate? Well, who won? Well, Sage, because she's got more votes. So 192 is the part that voted for the winning. So we want to know what percent voted for the winning. So again, this is the winning. This is the winning. They match up. So here we go. 320 times x, 320x. 192 times 100, 192 and 2 zeros. Divide by 320. Divide by 320. Cancel 1 0. Now I have 1,000. 920 divided by 32. So how many times did 3 go into 19? Well, 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 6 is 18. 6 times. So let's try it. 32 times 6. Ooh, this might put us over. Let's see. 6 times 2 is 12. 18, 19. Just what we wanted. So the 6 actually should go there because it's 192. Subtract, get 0, bring down a 0. 32 goes into 0. 0 times. So if we think of this, right? So what percent of the votes did she get? She got 60. And because it's this portion we're missing, we got to make sure we put our percent sign. So hopefully that's what you got. Let's look at another one. Okay, go ahead and pause this one. Figure it out. And then press play when you guys are ready to check. All right, let's see what you got. You have piggy bank. How about you have a piggy bank? That sounds better. That contains 150 coins. So that's all the coins in there, 150. You know that 16% of the coins are quarters. So 16% are quarters. Our question says how many quarters. So this one's quarters. What we don't know is quarters. So those match up. So we know subtraction is needed. So 100 times x, 100x. Ooh, 16 times 150. I'm going to go 16 times 15. And then I'll remember to add that 0 on. So 6 times 5 is 30. 5, 6, 7, 8. 0 placeholder. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. Add them up. 0. 14. 2. And then remember it was actually 150, but I need to add that 0 on. So 2,400. So we divide by 100. We divide by 100. We get to cancel. 24 over 1. 24. So how many quarters are there? 24 quarters, because 16% is not very high percentage, and 24 out of 150. So that seems reasonable. Now, what's the value of the quarters in the jar? Well, how much is a quarter worth? 25 cents. So we do some multiplying. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 2 is 10, 11, 12. 0 placeholder. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. We add those all up. I'm going to come over here. 0 and 0. 0. 8 and 2, 10. 4, 5, 6. Now, is it $600? No, I wish. 1 decimal, 2 decimal, 1 decimal, 2 decimal. So the value is $6. Plus, how about press play when you are ready to check? Okay, here we go. We got our proportions. Michael's team won 60% of the games. So 60% is what they won of the 10 football games they played. So 10's their total. We always have 100 for our whole on the percent. They lost the remainder of the games. So it says, how many did they lose? Now, we're going to do this one. We can subtract now, but I'm just going to figure out how many they won and then subtract. So if we look at this, this is our x. Okay. So we cross multiply. 100 times x is 100x. 60 times 10 is 6 and 2 zeros. This gets really simple. Cross off those zeros. Okay, so 6 is how many they won. So how many did they lose? Well, 10 minus 6 is 4. So they lost 4 of them. All right, guys, I hope that made sense today. You will do your group work. You will do your one-pager. You do not have an exit ticket today because you have a quiz. So your quiz will cover going from a like percent to a fraction, fraction to percent, percent to decimal, decimal to percent. So maybe before you guys start the quiz, you can review as a class those 4 different things, right? Relook at that. Maybe Mrs. Belknap can give you just a second to look at your yellow paper that has their information. And then your quiz questions will be just like we did today. And then the other ones will be where we have like 20 is what percent of 64 or something like that. Remember, we have percent over 100 equals is over of. So those are some reminders on your quiz. Take your time, double check your multiplication, and you guys should do great. And I will see you guys on Monday. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day.